The lawyer's third call this week started the same way. "Miss Chen, your parents are facing foreclosure. They need your help immediately." I hung up, just like the first two times. After 18 months of silence from my family, suddenly everyone wanted to talk. If you are watching this, kindly subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. And I hope that you're safe wherever you are. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm 32 years old, and until 2 years ago, I was the perfect daughter, the one who always said yes. The one who sacrificed her dreams so others could chase theirs. The one who worked 3 jobs through college, while my younger brother Marcus got a full ride on our parents' dime. That changed the day my parents walked into my modest suburban home with spreadsheets and a plan to mortgage my house. "Sarah, we need to talk," Mom said, settling into my kitchen chair like she owned it. Dad followed, carrying a manila folder thick with documents. Marcus trailed behind them, avoiding my eyes. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," Dad announced, spreading papers across my dining table. "Marcus has found an investment property. Luxury condos in downtown Seattle. Pre-construction pricing." I stared at the documents: purchase agreements, loan applications, partnership contracts, all requiring my house as collateral. "You want me to mortgage my home for Marcus's real estate venture?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "It's guaranteed profit." Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice eager but shaky. "We'll triple the investment in 18 months. You'll get your money back plus interest." I had heard this song before. The food truck that failed after 6 months. The crypto trading venture that lost $12,000. The artisanal soap business that never sold a single bar. "The answer is no," I said simply. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Mom's face crumpled. Dad's jaw tightened. Marcus looked like I had physically struck him. "Sarah," Mom's voice broke. "This is family. Family helps each other." "I've been helping," I replied. "I co-signed Marcus's car loan when he had no credit. I loaned you both money for Dad's medical bills 3 years ago. I've never asked for any of it back." "This is different," Dad insisted. "This is Marcus's future, his chance to build something real." I looked at my brother, really looked at him. The designer clothes he couldn't afford, the expensive watch, the nervous fidgeting that had become more pronounced over the past year. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked. The family exchanged glances, the kind of loaded look that confirmed my worst suspicions. "We'll give you until Monday to think about it," Dad said, gathering the papers. "But Sarah, if you can't support this family when it matters most, maybe you need to consider what kind of daughter you really are." The threat hung in the air as they left. Support the investment or lose my family. But what they didn't understand was that I had already made my choice, the moment they walked through my door expecting me to risk everything I had worked for. What I didn't know was that Monday's deadline would change everything forever. I bought my house at 28 with money I had saved since I was 16. While my friends were buying designer clothes and taking expensive vacations, I was depositing every spare dollar into my future home account. I worked weekends, took on extra shifts, and lived in studio apartments with 3 roommates. My parents thought I was being dramatic. "Just ask us for help," they'd say, not understanding that I had watched them bail out Marcus his entire life. I wanted something that was mine alone, something no one could take away or make me feel guilty about having. The day I got my house keys was the proudest moment of my life. A small 2-bedroom craftsman with a garden I could tend and a mortgage payment I could handle alone. It represented independence, security, and self-sufficiency. Marcus had always been different. Charismatic, where I was quiet. Charming, where I was serious. He could convince our parents to fund any dream, and they gladly opened their wallets. When he wanted to study abroad, they took out a second mortgage. When he needed a car, they co-signed for a BMW. When his first business failed, they covered his debts without question. I never begrudged him their support, but I also never asked for it. I made my own way, built my own life, and kept my financial business private, which is why it took me 2 days of research to discover the truth about Marcus's investment opportunity. The luxury condos were real, but Marcus wasn't buying them as an investment. He was buying them to flip immediately to cover gambling debts. Debts that had been accumulating for over 2 years. Debts that had already consumed his savings, his credit cards, and several loans from friends. The beautiful spreadsheets and profit projections were fantasy. The real plan was to use my house as collateral to secure money that would disappear into the pockets of bookmakers and loan sharks. My brother wasn't an entrepreneur, he was an addict, and my parents either didn't know or were willfully blind to the reality of his situation. I called my Aunt Linda, Dad's sister, who had always been the family truth teller. "Sarah, honey," she said after I explained the situation, "I've been waiting for someone to finally say no to Marcus. Your parents have mortgaged their house twice already to cover his debts. They're drowning, and they're trying to drag you down with them." The revelation hit me like ice water. My parents weren't investing in Marcus's future. They were desperately trying to save their own. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Bad enough that they've been borrowing money from family members for months," Linda said quietly. "Your cousin Janet loaned them $5,000 last month. Uncle Robert gave them $3,000 in the spring. Everyone's been too embarrassed to tell you because they know you'd try to fix it." I hung up the phone feeling sick, not just because of Marcus's addiction, but because my parents had hidden their financial crisis from me while pressuring me to risk everything for a lie. Sunday night, I made my decision. I would not mortgage my house, not for an investment, not for gambling debts, and not to enable an addiction that was destroying my family. But first I needed to know exactly what I was refusing to save them from. Monday arrived with the subtlety of a hurricane. My parents showed up at my office during lunch, with Marcus and, surprisingly, my grandmother in tow. They had brought reinforcements for an emotional siege. "Sarah," Grandma said the moment they walked into the conference room I had borrowed, "your family needs you." I had prepared for this moment all weekend. I had researched addiction, consulted with a financial advisor, and even called a therapist for guidance. But seeing my 80-year-old grandmother's disappointed face still made my resolve waver. "I know about the gambling," I said without preamble. Marcus went white. Mom gasped. Dad's face hardened into defensive anger. "That's not what this is about," Dad said quickly. "It's exactly what this is about," I replied, pulling out the folder of documents I had compiled. "Marcus owes $47,000 to various creditors. The condo investment is a cover story to get money to pay off debts before they break his legs." "Sarah," Mom exclaimed, horrified by my bluntness. "I'm not exaggerating," I continued, looking directly at my brother. "I spoke to your friend Derek. He told me about the poker games, the sports betting, the trip to Vegas that cost you $15,000 in one weekend." Marcus slumped in his chair. "I can stop. I just need this one chance to get even." "That's what addicts always say," I replied, though my heart was breaking. "Getting even isn't recovery, it's just a bigger bet." Grandma leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Sarah, I raised your father to understand that family means sacrifice. Sometimes we have to risk everything for the people we love." The guilt was overwhelming. These people had loved me, supported me, celebrated my successes. Now they sat across from me asking for help, and I was refusing. "I've sacrificed plenty," I said quietly. "I worked through college while Marcus partied. I lived in poverty for years saving for this house while everyone else enjoyed life. I've co-signed loans, given money I couldn't afford to give, and never asked for anything in return. This is different," Dad insisted. "This is his rock bottom. If we can just get him through this crisis, he'll get help." "You've said that before," I replied. "After the food truck failed, after the crypto losses, after every scheme that was going to change everything. I can't keep enabling this pattern." The room fell silent except for Mom's quiet crying. Marcus stared at his hands. Dad's face was red with frustration. "So that's it?" Dad finally asked. "You'll watch your family lose everything because you're too selfish to help." The word selfish hit like a physical blow. It was the accusation I had feared most, the one that had kept me awake for 3 nights. "I'll help Marcus get into treatment," I said. "I'll help you find financial counseling. I'll assist with budgeting, debt consolidation, anything that addresses the real problem. But I won't mortgage my house to feed his addiction. Treatment won't solve this immediate crisis," Marcus said desperately. "I need the money now, or I'll lose more than the house." The threat was clear. Loan sharks don't accept payment plans. "Then you need to call the police, not mortgage my house," I said. Dad stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "If you can't support this family when it matters, then maybe you're not really part of it." The ultimatum I had been expecting finally arrived. Choose Marcus's addiction, or lose my family. I looked at each of them. Mom, crying silently. Grandma, disappointed and confused. Marcus, desperate and ashamed. Dad, angry and cornered. I love you all, I said, but my answer is still no. The silence stretched for an eternity before Dad gathered his papers. Then I guess we know where you stand. He said, don't expect to be welcome at family gatherings anymore. Don't expect us to pretend you exist when you've made it clear family means nothing to you. They filed out without another word, leaving me alone in the conference room with the echo of burned bridges and the terrible certainty that I had just lost everyone I loved most. But what I didn't know was that this was only the beginning of consequences I never could have imagined. The silence started immediately. No more Sunday dinner invitations. No more holiday planning calls. No more random texts from Mom asking about my day. It was like I had been surgically removed from the family with precision that left no ragged edges, just clean, deliberate absence. The first family event I missed was my cousin Janet's birthday party. I only found out about it through social media photos, posted the next day. Everyone was there. Even relatives who lived out of state had made the trip. Everyone except me. I stared at the photos on my phone, seeing my family laughing and celebrating without me. Mom had worn the blue dress I bought her for Mother's Day. Dad was holding his newest grandchild, my cousin's baby daughter. Marcus stood in the background of several shots, looking healthier than I had seen him in months. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe family loyalty meant more than financial prudence. The doubt crept in during quiet moments, while cooking dinner for one, while watching movies alone on weekend nights, while dealing with a minor home repair crisis with no one to call for help. The independence I had fought for felt more like isolation. My friends were supportive but divided. Some praised my boundary setting. Others questioned whether any principle was worth losing family over. The conversations became exhausting, so I stopped bringing it up. You did the right thing, my coworker Maya insisted during lunch one day. Enabling addiction isn't love. It's harm disguised as help. Then why do I feel like such a terrible person? I asked. Because they want you to, she replied. Emotional manipulation works by making you question your own judgment. That's how they've controlled you for years. Her words stung because they rang true. How many times had I sacrificed my needs to avoid disappointing my family? How many opportunities had I missed because someone else's crisis took priority? The house that had once represented freedom now felt like a fortress. Beautiful but lonely. Secure but isolated. Every mortgage payment reminded me what it had cost to make it. 6 weeks into the exile, I ran into my Uncle Robert at the grocery store. He looked uncomfortable, glancing around as if afraid someone might see us talking. Sarah, he said quietly, I want you to know that not everyone agrees with your parents' decision. Hope fluttered in my chest. Really, your Aunt Linda is furious about how they're treating you. Several of us have tried to talk to them, but they're convinced you've betrayed the family. How is Marcus? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Robert's expression darkened. Not good. The gambling got worse after you said no. He borrowed money from some very dangerous people to try one more big win. It didn't work out. The blood drained from my face. Is he safe? For now. Your parents are selling their house to cover his debts. They're moving in with your grandmother. The news hit me like a physical blow. My childhood home sold to clean up gambling debts. My parents losing everything they had worked for. My grandmother's house becoming a refuge for the family I had supposedly abandoned. Maybe I made the wrong choice, I whispered. Robert shook his head firmly. You made the only choice that wouldn't have destroyed 2 families instead of 1. If you had mortgaged your house, Marcus would have gambled that money away too, and then where would any of you be? His words provided little comfort as I drove home to my beautiful, empty house. That night, for the first time since the confrontation, I seriously considered calling my parents. The phone was in my hand when it rang. Unknown number, probably a telemarketer. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up that call that would change everything I thought I knew about my family's situation. Miss Chen, this is David Martinez from Preston and Associates Legal Services. I represent your parents, Robert and Linda Chen. We need to discuss their urgent financial situation. My heart stopped. I'm sorry. Who did you say you represent? Your parents are facing foreclosure proceedings. Multiple creditors are seeking immediate payment. They've listed you as their emergency contact for financial matters. I sank into my kitchen chair, mind reeling. When did they hire you? 3 weeks ago. Miss Chen, I'll be direct. Your parents are in severe financial distress. beyond what normal debt consolidation can address. They need immediate family assistance or they'll lose everything within 30 days. The professional calm in his voice made the situation feel surreal. This wasn't emotional manipulation or family pressure. This was legal reality. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" I said. "Your parents indicated you own property that could serve as collateral for emergency financing. We need to discuss options immediately." I hung up without another word, but the call had opened a door I couldn't close. Over the next week, I received similar calls from 2 other attorneys, a debt collection agency, and someone claiming to represent private creditors Marcus owed money to. Each conversation revealed new pieces of a financial disaster that was far worse than I had imagined. The mortgage company had started foreclosure proceedings on my parents' house. They were behind 4 months on payments. Dad's small business was failing, partially because he had been borrowing from company accounts to cover Marcus's debts. Mom had maxed out every credit card they owned. But the most shocking revelation came from the third attorney who called. "Miss Chen, I need to inform you that your parents have already attempted to use your property as collateral without your knowledge. We caught the documentation discrepancy during our review process, which is why I'm calling." My blood turned to ice. "What do you mean they tried to use my property?" "They submitted mortgage applications claiming joint ownership of your residence. When we ran the title search, we discovered they have no legal claim to your property. That's fraud, Miss Chen. They could face criminal charges." I had to sit down. My parents, desperate to save Marcus from his addiction, had tried to forge documents using my house as collateral. They hadn't just asked me to mortgage my home. They had tried to mortgage it without my consent. The betrayal cut deeper than anything they had done before. But it also clarified the true scope of the crisis they were facing. I called Aunt Linda immediately. "Linda, I need the truth. All of it. How bad is the situation really?" Her sigh came through the phone like a weight dropping. "Sarah, honey, it's worse than anyone wants to admit. Your parents have lost their house. Marcus disappeared 2 weeks ago after borrowing money from loan sharks and losing it all in one night." The most devastating revelation was a loan they had taken from a private lending company that specialized in desperate borrowers, $30,000 at 40% interest, secured by their house. The payment schedule was impossible to meet, which meant foreclosure was inevitable unless they found another source of funds. That source was supposed to be my house. But there was something else in the documents that made my heart stop. Marcus hadn't disappeared because he was scared of creditors. He had disappeared because he had stolen money from Dad's business account. $12,000 taken in small increments over 6 months. My father wasn't just losing his house. He was facing potential criminal charges for embezzlement because Marcus had stolen money from business accounts Dad was responsible for. I called Uncle Robert immediately. "Did you know Marcus stole from Dad's business?" I asked without preamble. The long silence told me everything. "Yes," he finally said. "Your father has been trying to replace the money before anyone notices. That's why he's been so desperate for cash. Robert, Dad could go to prison if this comes out. I know, we all know. That's why everyone has been so frantic to help Marcus get the money to pay everyone back. If the business clients discover the theft, your father's reputation and freedom are finished." The pieces finally clicked into place. This wasn't just about gambling debts or family loyalty. My father's entire life was balanced on the edge of criminal prosecution because he had covered for Marcus's addiction for too long. My phone rang. "Aunt Linda. Sarah, you need to know. Marcus came home. He's in the hospital." My blood went cold. "What happened?" "Suicide attempt. Pills. Your mother found him in time, but barely. He left a note saying he couldn't live with what he had done to the family." The anger I had been carrying for months evaporated instantly. Whatever Marcus had done, whatever mistakes he had made, I didn't want him dead. I didn't want any of them destroyed by this situation. "Which hospital?" I asked, already reaching for my keys. "Sarah, wait. Your parents don't want you there. They're still angry about you refusing to help. Your father said having you there would make things worse." Even in crisis, even with their son in a hospital bed, they were maintaining the wall between us. But some things mattered more than pride or hurt feelings or who was right about financial decisions. "Which hospital?" "Linda. Harborview Medical Center. Room 314. But Sarah, please be prepared. Your mother might not speak to you. I drove to the hospital knowing this could be the last chance to save my family or the final confirmation that some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. What I found in that hospital room would force all of us to face truths we had been avoiding for years. The intensive care waiting room smelled like disinfectant and despair. I found my parents huddled together in plastic chairs looking older than I had ever seen them. Mom's face was puffy from crying. Dad stared at the wall with hollow eyes. They looked up when I approached. Mom's expression shifted from surprise to pain to anger in rapid succession. "What are you doing here?" Dad asked, his voice flat. "He's my brother," I said simply. "Is he going to be okay?" Mom started crying again. "The doctors say he'll recover physically. But Sarah, the things he said in that note." Her voice broke. I sat down across from them, maintaining careful distance while showing I wasn't leaving. "Can I see the note?" Dad pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. "I've destroyed everyone I love. Dad will go to prison because of money I stole. Mom will lose her house because of my debts." Sarah was right to say no, but I was too proud to admit it. "I can't fix what I've broken, and I can't watch you all suffer for my mistakes anymore. I'm sorry. I love you." Reading Marcus's words broke something inside me that anger had been protecting. My little brother, who had charmed his way through life, who had always believed the next scheme would fix everything, had finally seen the truth of what his addiction had cost. "He's not wrong about one thing," I said quietly. "I was right to say no to mortgaging my house. But I was wrong about refusing to help find real solutions." Dad looked at me sharply. "What do you mean?" I pulled out the financial analysis I had been preparing for 3 days. "I've been working with attorneys and financial advisors. There might be a way to save the family without destroying anyone else." Hope flickered in Mom's eyes for the first time since I had arrived. "How?" "I sell my house," I said. "Not mortgage it, sell it. Use the equity to pay off the most dangerous creditors and get Marcus into a residential treatment program. Help Dad replace the stolen money before criminal charges are filed." Dad shook his head immediately. "Sarah, we can't ask you to sell your house. That's your security, your future." "You're not asking," I replied. "I'm offering. But with conditions you're not going to like." The old wariness returned to their faces. They had been manipulating me with emotional appeals for so long that the idea of negotiated terms felt like betrayal. "What conditions?" Mom asked. "Marcus goes into treatment immediately after he's medically cleared. Real treatment, not outpatient counseling he can skip. 6 months minimum." They nodded reluctantly. "All family finances become transparent. Joint meetings with financial advisors. No more secret loans, hidden debts, or surprise crises." Dad's jaw tightened, but he didn't object. "And if Marcus relapses, if he gambles again after treatment, I'm done. No more rescues, no more family meetings about his problems. He becomes responsible for his own choices and consequences." "Sarah," Mom said, "you can't just abandon family." "I'm not abandoning anyone," I replied. "I'm establishing boundaries that protect everyone, including Marcus. Enabling his addiction isn't love. It's slow-motion murder." The harsh words hung in the sterile air. But they were true, and we all knew it. "What about you?" Dad asked. "If you sell your house, where will you live?" "I'll figure it out," I said. "Maybe this is a chance for me to try something new. Travel, relocate, pursue opportunities I've been too afraid to risk." A doctor approached our small group. "The Chen family. Marcus is awake and asking for all of you." We stood together, 3 people who had spent months building walls against each other, now united by crisis and the fragile possibility of redemption. Marcus looked small in the hospital bed, connected to monitors that beeped steadily. His eyes were clearer than I had seen them in years, but filled with shame that was painful to witness. "Sarah," he whispered when he saw me. "I thought you hated me." I took his hand. "I hate your choices." "I've never hated you." He squeezed my fingers with surprising strength. "I heard what you offered Mom and Dad. I'll do the treatment. Real treatment. Whatever it takes." "The treatment isn't for us," I said. "It's for you. You have to want recovery for yourself, not because we're requiring it." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I want to live, and I want to deserve the family I almost destroyed." Would you help family members who cut you off when they needed you most? Share your thoughts below. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust would have to be rebuilt slowly. Patterns that had been established over decades would need to change. But for the first time in months we were all looking in the same direction. What I didn't know was that selling my house would lead to discoveries that would change everything I thought I knew about sacrifice, family, and what it really means to start over. 3 months later, I sat in a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, looking at photos of the small apartment I was about to rent. My house had sold quickly, for more than asking price, in a market that rewarded my years of careful maintenance and improvements. The money had covered all of Marcus's creditors, replaced what he had stolen from Dad's business, and funded his stay at a residential treatment facility in Arizona. There was enough left over for me to take 6 months to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Marcus was doing well in treatment. His letters were different now, honest about his struggles instead of full of empty promises. He had been clean for 96 days and counting each one as a victory. "I'm learning that rock bottom has a basement," he wrote in his latest letter. "But I'm also learning that recovery is possible if I stop lying to myself about having control over this disease." Mom and Dad were adjusting to their new financial reality. They had moved in with Grandma temporarily while looking for a smaller place they could actually afford. Dad's business was slowly recovering, and he had implemented financial controls that prevented anyone from accessing business accounts without authorization. "We should have done this years ago," he admitted during one of our weekly phone calls. "We enabled Marcus by making his problems our emergencies. We taught him that someone would always clean up his messes." The family dynamics were still fragile but improving. Sunday dinners had resumed at Grandma's house, with everyone contributing to grocery costs and meal preparation. The conversations were different now, more honest and less focused on maintaining perfect appearances. I was different too. Selling my house had forced me to confront how much of my identity was wrapped up in financial security and material possessions. Without mortgage payments and property maintenance consuming my budget, I had discovered freedoms I hadn't experienced since college. I was consulting part-time for a nonprofit that helped families in financial crisis, work that felt meaningful in ways my corporate job never had. I was also writing, documenting the experience of loving someone with addiction and the complexity of helping without enabling. The Portland move was partly practical and partly symbolic. I needed distance from the family dynamics while they healed, and I wanted to explore whether the independence I had fought for was worth the isolation it sometimes required. 6 months after Marcus's hospitalization, he completed his treatment program and moved into a sober living house in Phoenix. He got a job at a construction company, paying off his debts to the family with small monthly payments that were more about rebuilding trust than recovering money. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said during a video call on his 6-month sobriety anniversary. "I know I destroyed things that can't be fixed. But I want you to know that your refusal to mortgage your house probably saved my life." "How do you figure that?" I asked. "If you had given me that money, I would have lost it all and then found a way to kill myself when the shame became unbearable. Your no forced me to face consequences I had been avoiding for years. It was the first time anyone in our family had refused to rescue me from my own choices." His words confirmed what I had suspected but been afraid to voice. Sometimes love requires allowing people to fail completely so they can find the motivation to rebuild from the ground up. A year after selling my house, I was offered a permanent position with the nonprofit in Portland developing programs that taught financial literacy to families affected by addiction. The work combined my background in finance with hard-won knowledge about family systems and enabling behaviors. I was also in a relationship with someone who understood boundaries, respected independence, and had his own experience with family addiction. We were taking things slowly, both of us cautious about repeating patterns that had damaged us in the past. The Portland apartment was smaller than my house had been, but it felt spacious in ways that had nothing to do with square footage. I had learned the difference between being alone and being lonely, between security and control, between helping and rescuing. Marcus visited for the first time 18 months after his suicide attempt. He was thinner but healthier, calmer but more alert. He had been sober for over a year and was engaged to a woman he had met in group therapy. "I keep waiting for you to hate me," he said as we walked through the Saturday market downtown. "I told you before," I replied. "I hate addiction. I hate what it did to our family. But I don't hate you, even after everything I cost you. Your house, your savings, your relationship with Mom and Dad." I stopped walking and turned to face him. "Marcus, you didn't cost me those things. I chose to give them up because I love you more than I love security. But I also chose to do it in a way that didn't enable your addiction to continue." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that kind of love." "You don't have to deserve it," I said. "You just have to accept it, and stay sober." When is it okay to say no to family? The answer isn't simple, but I learned it's not just okay but necessary when saying yes would harm everyone involved. 2 years after the confrontation that shattered our family, we gathered for Thanksgiving at a table that looked nothing like the holidays of my childhood. We were in a smaller house, with simpler food and more honest conversations. Marcus and his fiancée joined us by video call from Phoenix. Dad carved turkey with hands that no longer shook from stress. Mom smiled without the forced cheer that had hidden years of worry. I brought pumpkin pie and stories from my work helping other families navigate financial crises caused by addiction. The irony wasn't lost on any of us that I had become professionally qualified to help families facing exactly the situation we had survived. I have something to say, Dad announced as we finished dessert. I owe Sarah an apology that's 2 years overdue. The table went quiet. You were right about everything, he continued, his voice steady but emotional. Right about enabling Marcus. Right about protecting your financial security. Right about tough love being the only thing that could break the cycle we were trapped in. Dad, I started to interrupt. Let me finish, he said. When you refused to mortgage your house, I thought you were selfish and cold. I thought you cared more about money than family. I was wrong. You cared enough about family to make the hardest choice any of us could have made. Mom reached across the table to squeeze my hand. We lost ourselves trying to save Marcus from his addiction. We forgot that we were actually making it worse. You remembered what we had forgotten, that love sometimes means saying no. Marcus's voice came through the laptop speaker, thick with emotion. Sarah saved my life by refusing to save me. That sounds contradictory, but it's true. If she had given me that money, I would have gambled it away and found a way to get more. The cycle would have continued until someone died or went to prison. I looked around the table at these people who had raised me, frustrated me, hurt me, and loved me through all of it. They looked older but healthier, sadder but wiser, smaller but somehow more solid. We're all different people than we were 2 years ago, I said. Maybe that's what we needed to become. The evening ended with hugs that felt different than before, less desperate, more genuine. We had learned that family isn't about never disappointing each other, it's about surviving disappointment and choosing to rebuild with better foundations. 3 years after refusing to mortgage my house, I received a call that brought the story full circle. It was David Martinez, the lawyer who had first contacted me about my parents' financial crisis. Miss Chen, I have unusual news, he said. Do you remember the private lending company your parents borrowed from, the one with the predatory interest rates? Unfortunately, yes, I replied. They've been shut down by federal authorities for illegal lending practices. Your parents and several other families are entitled to restitution. The money your family paid in excessive interest and fees is being returned. The check that arrived 2 weeks later was substantial enough to serve as a down payment on a small house in Portland. But more importantly, it felt like vindication from the universe that sometimes doing the right thing, even when it feels impossible, leads to outcomes you never could have planned. I called my parents to share the news. Use it for your new house, Mom said immediately. You've earned it. Actually, I said, I was thinking we could use part of it to establish a fund for families dealing with addiction, help other people navigate these crises without destroying themselves financially. The silence on the other end of the line was different than the silences from our dark period. This was consideration, not rejection. That's a beautiful idea, Dad said finally. Marcus would be proud. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the revenge I had gotten wasn't against my family for cutting me out. It was against the patterns of enabling and dysfunction that had nearly destroyed all of us. By refusing to participate in those patterns, I had helped break cycles that might have continued for generations. The lawyers had stopped calling. The family was healing. Marcus was building a life based on honesty instead of manipulation. My parents had learned to love without enabling, and I had discovered that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was the most loving thing I could have done. Sometimes the best revenge against those who hurt you is refusing to let their dysfunction destroy your life. Sometimes it's helping them heal while protecting yourself. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it's discovering that love can survive even the hardest truths. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming family dysfunction and finding strength in difficult choices. And remember, setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's survival.